is up, YouTube? This is your host, Ranee B, bringing you that homicidal tea. And today's blend of tea is a charming ladies' man blend. Today's case features Shawn Grate, a man with the introspection to say the exact words, "I can't say that I'm a normal person." Yeah, understatement of the century, dude. Before we dive into this case, though, let me go ahead and remind you beautiful people to click that like and subscribe button, and hopefully you guys will start noticing a little disappearing act on my double chin here on the screen. I've been killing it at the pool right now. I am eating right, feeling great. Holy cow, dude, I love swimming. Oh my God. If you guys are doing some healthy stuff, leave it in the comments and let me know what your favorite exercise to do while you binge on true crime tea. Personally, my darkest desire lately is falling asleep to that awesome Peter Thomas. Oh my gosh, from Forensic Files. Rest in peace, Peter. Oh my gosh, your voice forever lives on in the podcast, probably explaining why so many Forensic Files stories from the 1990s have been making their way into my videos. But let's stop that tangent and get right back on track. Back to the case of Shawn Grate. Shawn Michael Grate, while not as well known as Ted Bundy, terrified Central Ohio for a decade with his ladies' man charm. Shawn Michael Grate, he was born on August 8th, 1976 in Marion, Ohio, and has a mysterious or lost childhood. If you look at Grate's Wikipedia page, there's no information on the years between birth and high school. Weird. So apart from his parents' divorce when he was 6, Grate appears to have had a typical childhood, with his mother at least. She later stated in an interview that she raised him to know the difference between right and wrong. Well, something went wrong, sweetie. Anyway, Grate's father, he was granted custody of Grate just shy of his 18th birthday for unexplained reasons, which is always off to me. In Texas, where I'm from, moms usually get the babies. Period. It always makes me pause for a minute whenever I hear a dad winning custody. Other than that, though, there's just not much else known about his childhood. Grate's high school girlfriend reported episodes in which he couldn't get off the couch for days. I had that and actually still have that from high school, but anyway, I call it the weekend. He once told cops that he had been abused as a child, but he never went into any detail or anything about it, and it was never confirmed. So who knows? Almost everyone who knew Grate described him as having a good side and a horrific side in interviews. Grate's mother characterized him as attractive and personable, saying that he could charm the pants off of anyone, and he was very kind and extremely cordial. And he struck me sort of as kind, more like a big brother, said Grate's final victim. Grate, when he would switch personas, would become unpredictably violent and controlling. Grate was arrested 3 months after his 18th birthday for grabbing his girlfriend by the throat. Grate was arrested twice after graduating from high school, once in 1996 and again in 1997 for felony burglary. He received a 4-year prison sentence for a second arrest, of which he would serve a total of about 7 months before becoming eligible for release. Grate was arrested for assault again in 1998. He broke into his girlfriend's home, choked her, and then threatened to murder her. No big deal. He was back in jail for the next month. Grate attacked the same woman 8 months later by creeping into her house and somehow spent the night hiding inside her sofa with a butcher knife before attacking her and her sister. Obviously, this was a parole violation. Well, yeah. So Grate was ordered back to jail to spend the remainder of his 4-year term for the 1997 burglary. In 2003, in January, he was released. He's safe for society. Well, he must have liked jail, because it wouldn't take him very long to go back. You see, Grate would be back in jail for another 7 months before the end of the year for choking and assaulting yet another woman. By 2005, Grate had returned to his mother's home. I'm sure she was thrilled. A young woman in her early 20s came to their home one day to sell magazines. Now, unfortunately, Grate had a hard time recalling the events. It just slipped his mind. From what I could gather, the woman either appeared dishonest to Grate or failed to deliver the magazines as promised or something like that. I mean, whatever. Grate proceeded to hunt her down and lured her somehow into his car by pretending to be looking for his magazines. Grate drove her to his home, where he fatally stabbed her in the neck. Her remains were discovered in a field 2 years later. She'd be known as Jane Doe until there was a DNA match in 2019 that revealed her true identity, Dana Lowry. Grate said he didn't kill anyone else for 10 years, though police are still doubtful, but that doesn't mean that he went completely crime-free. You see, he'd be charged with a slew of offenses, from drug possession to domestic violence. He seems to like that one. Grate assaulted yet another girlfriend in 2010, and when she tried to defend herself, he beat, threatened, and choked her to nearly death. But when she tried to put up her hand to protect herself, he fractured her hand. The woman persuaded Grate to let her go to the hospital, where she originally pretended to have fallen down, she told the nurse. But when Grate left the room, she told the truth about her injuries, and Grate took off, and then he caught wind of that, and the cops had been called and everything. They located him at his girlfriend's home, hidden inside her couch. 4 days later, this guy's got a thing for couches. Grate was in prison for 6 months. He wrote unsettling letters to his now ex-girlfriend, but addressed everything to her animals. That's bizarre. Anyway, by August of 2011, Grate was unemployed, unhinged, and homeless. He found refuge at a small church in Ashland County, Ohio. He was greeted by a young lady who shook his hand, and this must have been one hell of a handshake because they were married less than 4 months later. You can only hide crazy for so long, and after a while, Grate's evil side began to appear. He no longer displayed any interest in going to church, and if his wife called him to, he got quite vocally violent. You know what comes after vocal violence? Ding, 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 you answered correct. Grate began choking his wife soon after, disguising it as playful wrestling. She later described his eyes as having pure darkness in them, and soon after, his wife found out that he was cheating on her too. Great, so you're going to beat me and cheat on me, and why are you staying? He simply left, though, when she questioned him about it. Grate's wife attempted to reconcile with him for several months, to no avail, thank God. In October of 2012, she filed for divorce, and despite signing the documents, Grate continued making threatening phone calls and statements directed at their daughter, her family, and her friends. In the spring of 2013, the ex-wife obtained a restraining order against him, and let's just say she dodged a bullet. Anyway, continuing on. Rebekah Leicy had the unfortunate chance meeting with Grate at a bar on January 22nd, 2015. Grate claims that she took $4 from him, and apparently that's all it takes to justify murder in his mind. Her body was discovered 15 months later, 10 miles east of the pub where she was last seen in Mansfield, Ohio. Her death was officially ruled a drug overdose, but Grate maintains that he strangled her to death. Well, maybe she was high. Well, that happened. Who knows? Grate was again on the prowl, but not too long after that, about a year and a half later, in June of 2016, Grate started dating Candice Cunningham. They would go on to date for 7 months, and according to Grate, she was having a psychotic break due to being despondent, on drugs, and suicidal. This caused Candice to become violent towards him, which, according to Grate, forced him to defend himself, and the way that he chose to do it, wait for it, he strangled her, and he also set fire to her house. You know, normal. Also normal is how he later returned to the burned out house and relocated her body to a nearby forested area. Oh my God. Okay. This guy, wow. This homicidal streak must have had divinely instilled a compassionate streak in Grate. He met a girl by the name of Elizabeth Griffin at a Salvation Army Red Center where they played games and hung out. I guess that's what you do when you're homeless. They got to know one another, and he learned of her deep mental disturbances, and that was what directed him to strangle her to death in form of compassion. So that's a direct quote. Somehow he wasn't linked to her murder either, though. I guess he just chooses them, dumps them, and moves along with the next person that he can help. Stacey Stanley unluckily had a flat tire in her apartment complex, and guess who shows up to help her? Our boy Shawn. He returned to her apartment complex over the next few days, where he and a never identified friend of Stacey's, who we'll call Jane Doe, played badminton. Stacey was last seen with Grate outside of a gas station on September 8, 2016. It would be discovered that Grate had strangled her after luring him back to his house. Well, his house, it's an abandoned house where he was squatting. This guy just oozes class. Now back to that unidentified buddy of Stacey's, Jane. Just 2 days after killing Stacey on September 10th, Grate pretended to be interested in Christianity, just the same way that he had tricked his ex-wife while he was talking to Jane. The night that she was kidnapped, Jane Doe testified that she willingly went into Grate's home because he said he had a bag of clothes for her and that she was going to give him an extra Bible. During the court proceedings, Jane Doe said that she sat down on the bed and opened the Bible and tried to read and discuss a few passages with him. Grate didn't seem interested at all, and he ripped the Bible out of her hands before he suddenly began to punch and kick her. She said she attempted to fight back, but also said, "Everything I did, he just did it so much harder." And she stopped struggling after Grate began choking her. She said she was then sexually assaulted in every way imaginable. What a monster. She told the court that she was not allowed to leave the house. She went on to tell the courtroom that I couldn't even move on my own without him jumping into reaction. Jane Doe was repeatedly assaulted and chained to Grate's bed in various positions the following 3 agonizing days. Then on the 3rd day, Jane was able to break free from her shackles. Grate, on the other hand, had removed the doorknob and arranged the door in such a way that any attempt to escape would quickly wake him. Jane Doe somehow found the courage and fortitude to dial 911 while still in the bedroom with Grate, using Grate's phone. I'll link to this 15-minute 911 call here, but here's just a snippet. It's horrifying.
Are you bleeding from anywhere?
Not anymore.
Where were you bleeding from? You don't have to talk if you don't need to, okay?
The police found her somehow, and the nightmare was finally over. Grate professed to know nothing about the crimes mentioned against him during his initial interrogation. And there goes that selective memory again. I mean, these guys all suffer from the same affliction. It's so widespread. But by the end of the interview, he had confessed not just to the kidnapping of Jane Doe, but to many killings. He told the cops about the bodies of both Griffith and Stanley they would be found at the house where he was arrested. Later, he told the cops about where to find Cunningham's body behind the burned down house in which he killed her. But wait, there's more. If you call in the next 10 minutes, you will get not just 1, but 2 more confessions. Yes, folks, Grate admitted to 2 additional murders. Leicy and a girl named Dana, whom he'd murdered 10 years before. Her body was found, like I said earlier, in 2019 and was then identified. Thanks, Grate! This case against Grate was a slam dunk. Grate proceeded to confess his misdeeds to pretty much anyone that would listen, despite his attorneys saying not guilty. Grate was found guilty of the murders of Griffith and Stanley, as well as of 15 other offenses after a trial that lasted less than 2 weeks, and then he was condemned to death on June 1st, 2018. Death dance, holla! Dude, there's something wrong with that girl. She's obsessed with the death penalty. Every episode. Anyway, that's my stupid conscience. Anyway, Grate pleaded guilty to the murders of Lowry, Leicy, and Cunningham a year later and was sentenced to 3 life terms without the possibility of parole. Grate's appeal against his death sentence was denied by Ohio Supreme Court in December 2020, and his execution date is scheduled for March 19, 2025. Since then, though, there's been an update. According to the court filings in February 2021, Shawn Grate was being assigned a new attorney who filed an application to reopen his death penalty case on March 30, 2021. Relax, honeys, in July of 2021, thankfully, Shawn Grate's application got denied. See you later. Where's the old Sparky? Fire him up. The jury recommended the death penalty for Grate back in 2018, and Judge Ron Forthoffel, oh my gosh, that is a mouthful, of Ashland County Common Pleas Court agreed. Phew, that was close. So set your calendars for March 19th, 2025, Death Party. Don't tell Ray Crone, though. He frowns upon that kind of thing. You know, his whole being sentenced to death for something, link there, that he had no part of. Yeah, sorry, Ray. I'm still a death penalty fan. But I'm a Ray Crone fan, too. If you don't get that joke, well, then you better get to watching the old episodes that I have. And I was pointing up there because there's your link. Well, that is it for the case of Shawn Grate and the waste of space that he is. I will see you soon in the next video. I'm working on a two-parter, and it's pretty long, and it's my favorite, or at least one of my favorite, First 48s I've ever seen. I mean, First 48, in my opinion, best true crime show ever. Oh my God, I love that show so much. The whole reason I started doing videos in the first place is the case that I'm going to cover. It's still unbelievably crazy to me how much it stuns me. This guy was so smart. Oh my God. Anyway, okay, I'll shut up now. See you later. Bye.